in this lesson we're going to look at the Hey sample for the Next to Me song. Now this is quite a complex part to do, and I have taken the sample route rather than just using a standard MIDI instrument. You might find it easier to do it with a standard MIDI instrument. I'm still experimenting with the sounds, but I'm going to show you exactly where I've got to and how I've kind of achieved this. So what you're going to hear is this Hey sample happens during this first chorus. There's a little bit during the verse 2, and then you have it again in chorus 3 and chorus 4. And it's a simple pattern of kind of quavers, but they're accented quavers, and they're accented on this first beat, okay? So the first beat, or the bar beat as it were, is louder than the one that's off the beat, okay? And you've got this pulling against, say, the clap pattern, which is emphasized on the kind of off pattern. So it's quite nice, and you have to make sure you get that emphasis. Now the sample, as you can see in mine, I've only used one pitch, and this is where I'm struggling, because the sample that I'm using doesn't transfer to different pitches very well. So what I'm going to end up doing is actually recording in a couple different Heys at different pitches to kind of get the range of pitches that I need. But at the moment I'm kind of canvassing it all in and making sure that I've got the right thing, because once I've set my channel up, it's going to be quite easy for me just to patch in another sample at a different pitch and just kind of have it go on. But this is literally the pattern. I'll just show you this also, because there is some panning. Now, the first bit of automation that I've done is with the panning. Now, there's a couple of ways you could have achieved this. I've done it obviously with panning, where it hits hard left and hard right, and this is for each note. And if I zoom in for this, you'll kind of see how this is faring against the actual tune. So for each note, it kind of whizzes from one speaker to the next, and that's how I've got it set up. This could have easily been achieved also using stereo delay, in which I've actually put just a little bit of stereo delay on, which also kind of has the same effect. So depending on which way you want to go with that, the results could equally be identical. But I've chosen to do the automation, which is a bit more faffy, it's a bit more long-winded. Also, there is some automation on the first 2 sets of Heys where it kind of fades in on these 2, so making sure you get the fade in. It doesn't happen in this block or the other 3 blocks, so after that it just stays consistent. Now let me show you what I've done here. So first off, I've gone and got a sample. I've recorded one in myself, but this one actually isn't my one. This is one that I've got from freesound.org, and it's quite a nice one. And the original sound was quite long, so I've had to, let's take it out of automation. So what I've had to do before taking it to the sampler is I've had to kind of cut it down so that it comes in, when I press the keyboard, it comes in on that first beat. So I've just cut this down to make sure it's going to go into my sample player. Okay. Now, at the moment I've left this, I will eventually hide this track, but as you can see it's muted. So as soon as it goes into the sampler, I know I don't need this, but I just wanted to show you how I kind of transferred it into the sampler. So click on the sampler, and I'm using the EXS24. Once again, go to the edit button, and there you can see my sample, and I've got the keynote as C3. Now as you can see, the note sounds better in order for it to pitch against the song at D3, so I've just taken it up just a tone. I wanted to take it up another tone, but I mean, here's what it sounds like a tone up. I can just about get away with it there, but I can't quite get away with it there. And that one's just slightly too low. But what I'm eventually going to do, I'm going to record a couple more pitches, and I'm just going to patch them in here, and I'm going to assign them to the relevant channel that the pitch is at, just so that I get the actual contrast that I want and the actual pitches that I want. You are going to have to spend a bit of time on this, and if you've got a good singer, getting them to say hey at a certain pitch, if they can do that, is going to save you a lot of time, okay? So that's how I've got it in there. I've changed, because of my sample, I've changed the attack, decay and release ever so slightly. So I've just given it a bit more attack, a bit more release, and I've just pulled the sustain down and the decay up just slightly, just shaping that parameter. I've also pushed the drive, and that was pretty much all I've done to that sound. Now I've brought it down in the mix, but then you are going to control that with automation as well, with that fade in. I've also done some compression, so just to make it kind of punch through the mix, I've done 6:1 compression, minus 23, and that's given me about 5 decibels of gain reduction. I've also added my reverb, my standard reverb, put quite a bit there, this delay sound, and I've also EQ'd it ever so slightly, just getting rid of a lot of my lower frequencies and getting rid of some of these higher frequencies. That's the kind of sound. So let me show you what I've got so far then. So let me just solo this. And as you can see, on its own, it actually works quite well. But when you listen to what the song's doing, you can hear that the actual pitch that I'm using isn't quite right. Okay, so let me just play their song so you can hear their version. And then when it gets to the next one, you'll hear that the pitch is also different again. Okay, play that one again. Look, so this one's a lower pitch and this one's a slightly higher pitch. Okay, so you are going to have to kind of have a play around with that. Once again, if you're inputting this with just a MIDI instrument, you're probably going to find it a lot easier, but you're not going to get the authentic sound that I'm getting here. So just so you guys can crack on with this, that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. But just so you can crack on with it, just have a listen to what mine sounds like in the mix, and you'll still see that there's still some work to do, but it is panning out quite nicely, and it's kind of working as is. But let's have a little listen, see what you think.
Next to me, next to me, you'll find him next to me.
And there's also, on this last note here, is actually a different sound altogether. So let's just hear that one, see what you think of that. You'll also hear that their sample is quite clean cut as well. You can actually hear the hey coming out, whereas mine's a bit more dull than that. So I'm going to have to shape that a bit more as well and try and say the hey just a little bit faster, just so it fits into that sampled phrase. So there you go, 2 ways of doing that then. So you can do it the same way as I've done and really spend some time on sculpting that sample, or you can go for a general MIDI sound and do it that way. Both ways are acceptable. You're not going to lose marks in either which way. You will lose marks if it doesn't blend with the mix, of course, but give it your best shot, and I'll see you in the next video.